In the 14th century, as the Ottoman Empire began its rise from a principality into a formidable power in the Islamic world, one man stood at the center of its transformation: Murad I, the third Ottoman Sultan, and a visionary leader who not only expanded his territories but shaped the very soul of his empire through one of the most controversial yet effective innovations in military history: the formation of the Janissary Corps. Murad was not just a conqueror. He was a man burdened by the responsibility of unity, strength, and divine purpose in a world torn by fragmentation. As the Ottoman armies crossed into Europe and subdued Balkan territories, Murad faced a pressing challenge: how to create a loyal, disciplined, and professional military force that would not be corrupted by tribal loyalties or feudal ambitions. The answer came not from tradition but from an unprecedented system that would later be known as a levy that gathered young Christian boys from conquered lands, not as slaves in chains, but as chosen recruits molded into the very protectors of the Islamic State. It was not an easy decision. Murad knew the criticisms that would follow, the doubts of his advisors, the whispers of scholars, the cries of mothers. Yet in his heart he believed that these boys, taken at a young age, educated in the finest Islamic traditions, trained in martial skill, and raised away from worldly distractions, would not only defend the empire, but become its spine and conscience. In Aden, which Murad established as the capital, the first of these young recruits arrived, scared, confused, yet chosen. They were taught Turkish, converted to Islam, and trained in a system of absolute discipline. Over time, they were not just soldiers. They became brothers, craftsmen of war, guardians of justice, and the sword arm of the Sultan. Murad often walked among them quietly, observing their drills, watching their prayers, speaking to their commanders, and offering words of encouragement. He saw not strangers, not to bloodlines, but to the empire and to Allah. The creation of the Janissary Corps marked a turning point in Ottoman history. No longer did the Sultan rely on tribal militias whose allegiance could waver. Now he had at his command an elite force that answered to no one but him, bound by a code of honor. It was during the campaigns in the Balkans that the Janissaries first proved their worth. At the Battle of Maritsa in 1371, when Serbian forces outnumbered the Ottomans, it was the Janissaries who held the lines, who advanced with unshaken resolve in the dead of night, and who returned victorious with not only the spoils of war, but the respect of an empire. Murad watched them with pride, not as mere warriors, but as a symbol of what his vision could achieve. Yet, with glory came pain. Murad was not blind to the sorrow of the families who lost their sons to the Devshah. Though the boys were given education, status, and spiritual guidance, their separation from their birth families remained a source of sorrow. Murad often visited the mosques at night, praying silently for strength and guidance. He ordered that the boys be treated with dignity, that their training be just, that their teachers be wise, and that no abuse be. He knew the line between discipline and cruelty was thin, and must never be crossed. As years passed, the Janissaries became more than a military unit. They became a legacy. They stood at the front lines of every major Ottoman conquest for centuries to come. But for Murad, it was never just about conquest. It was about order, about creating a state where justice could breathe, where chaos could be tamed, and where the Ummah could be protected from both internal decay and external threats. He believed the Janissaries, raised in devotion, could be that shield. His death came in 1389 at the Battle of Kosovo, where he achieved victory but paid the ultimate price. As he walked the battlefield after the Ottoman triumph, he was assassinated by a wounded enemy soldier. The Janissaries carried his body back with tears in their eyes, their formation never breaking. For them, he was not just he was a father. At his funeral, it is said that even the winds of Edorn wept, and the crescent moon hung low. His son, Bayezid I, would continue his legacy. But the memory of Murad's sacrifice and his vision lived on through the very heartbeat of the empire. Their rise would echo through centuries, feared by enemies, respected by allies, and remembered in history not only for their strength but for what they represented: the courage to forge unity from division, loyalty from adversity, and light from the shadows of doubt. Murad I, the man who turned orphans into warriors, who shaped boys into protectors of a civilization, left behind more than a military corps. He left behind a symbol of hope, sacrifice, and the timeless struggle to balance power with purpose. His legacy, though at times misunderstood, remains embedded in the very architecture of the Ottoman dream. A reminder that greatness is not born in comfort, but carved in fire, discipline, and the silent prayers of a leader who dared to reshape destiny.